Hello fellow Clashers, this is Kairos time and welcome to another Kairos tier list, version 3, July 2017. This is known as the bridge spam meta. It hasn't been this bad since the Goizen meta, guys. I did want to mention quickly that all of the numbers, the usage rates and the win rates come from statsroyale.com. The people there were able to send them to me. These are for grand challenges only. I'm thinking about doing a ladder tier list. Let me know what you guys think if you want that or not. Some quick changes to this tier list. I got rid of the plus category. I felt like it was kind of getting a little too nitty gritty and detail oriented. Also, I added a nerf list and a buff list, meaning that there are some S tier cards that I don't think necessarily need a nerf. They're just really strong because of the current meta. And I also think that there are some F tier cards that I wouldn't want to buff because they might cause issues in other metas like the ladder Royal Giant. So here we have the S tier category. These cards are excellent for the current meta, either because they're just too strong or because they work really well with the cards that are super popular at the moment. New S tier cards include the Bandit. She's mostly gotten such a big, incredible boost in usage rate, a 20% point increase, which is just insane, because of her synergy with the Battle Ram. The two of them are both very quick ground threats, and that means that you can't ignore them and they work very well together. We also have the Log going from tier A up to tier S, simply because the Log is just extremely versatile. We also have the Ice Golem. The Ice Golem has increased its usage rate even again, not to mention it has the highest win rate out of all of the cards in the game. Most likely due to the fact that it is a cheap, quick, defensive card, but it also helps clear bats that are spawned by that Night Witch. And then we have Zap. Zap has increased in usage and win rates. You just have to choose either Zap or Log, and that makes both of them incredibly versatile and definitely fit into the S tier category. Up next we have the A tier category, which is the very good category. New to the A tier category is the Elektra Wizard, moving up from the B to the A simply because his usage rate has gone up 7 percentage points, as well as his win rate going up 3 percentage points. He does an excellent job at stopping cards like the Battle Ram and the Bandit, which makes him a good card to be using in the current meta. We also have the Executioner going from the S tier down to the A tier because of the drop in Tornado and the fact that the Executioner just doesn't do enough damage fast enough to stop bridge spam. Along with the Executioner is the Baby Dragon, also moving down from the S tier. The Baby Dragon's usage rate has dropped 9 percentage points, probably similar to the reasons why the Executioner also moved down. The Tornado has also moved from the S tier down to the B tier because it does not do enough damage quick enough to stop bridge spam. Its usage rate has dropped 27 percentage points, which is absolutely phenomenal. Moving up is the Tombstone. The Tombstone does a really great job at stopping bridge spam, and although it does get easily countered by cards like the Log or even Poison, Poison is 1 elixir more, and Log does also require an additional 2 elixir, and bridge spam is usually placed at the bridge, which means that people don't have as much elixir to spare at that moment. One thing to really notice here is that the win rate of the Tombstone has gone up 14 percentage points, which is absolutely huge. Lastly, we do have the Goblin Gang, which is going from the S tier down to the A tier. The Goblin Gang seems to not be offering as much value as it has in the past because of cards like Zap quickly getting rid of those spear goblins. Zap does not get rid of those stabby goblins, and as such you're better off just going with the regular 2 elixir goblins so you can get more value out of it and get countered less frequently. Next we have the B tier category. These are good cards to be using. They're not the best in the meta, but if you build a deck around them and you do need to use them to try and cover some of the bases in your deck and make it a little bit more balanced or even better, then these are good cards to use. New to the B tier is the Inferno Dragon, jumping all the way from the F tier up to the B tier. The Inferno Dragon definitely is not considered as an overpowered card, but it has seen an incredible usage and win rate boost since the Vietnam deck was made. In a meta where the ground is a dangerous place to be for defensive buildings like the Inferno Tower, the Inferno Dragon does have a good spot in there to get rid of really big tanks like the Pekka or the Golem. Speaking of the Golem is moving from the A tier down to the B tier because of the increased usage of both the Inferno Dragon and the Pekka. I still think the Golem decks could have a good place in the meta, but it definitely does seem to struggle at the moment. Along with Golems, Giants have also been struggling in the meta as well, simply because even a Night Witch by itself can do a pretty good job at countering a Giant as long as her bats are not taken care of. Since the last tier list, we've seen the Giant decrease in win rate and usage rate. which puts him in kind of a sad place along with that Hog Rider. Up next in the B tier is the Goblins. I thought about putting the Goblins up where the Goblin Gang is, but I do think that the meta is going to shift a little bit more to an air meta to try and counter the ground threats that is bridge spam. That being said, I did feel like the Goblins going from F all the way up to B was a pretty modest increase for them. They've seen a usage increase of about 10 percentage points since the last tier list, as well as a win rate increase of 12 percentage points, bringing it up to 56, which is incredible. I'd like to see how they do before moving them up to the very good category, but for right now, they are a good option to use. Next is the C tier, which is the fair category. These are cards that aren't necessarily awful. They can be used in your decks, especially if they fill out some good spots in your deck, but they do take a little bit more working around to try and make them work out. New to the C tier is the Expo. The Expo has an incredibly low usage rate. It's considered one of those high skill, high reward cards where if you can learn to play it, then it does really well. However, with bridge spam in the meta, it's incredibly difficult to get value out of the Expo. We also have the guards going up from the F tier up to the C tier because they do a really good job at stopping cards like the Bandit and even the Battle Ram if it's left alone. Although they have a really low usage rate, their win rate is really high. It's gone up 17 percentage points. That being said, it's important to realize that because there's such a low usage rate, that data does not have a lot of information behind it, but the guards could be a good option in the meta, which is why I brought them up to the C tier. Also moving up from the F tier is the Wizard. The Wizard simply had a far higher usage rate than all the other F tier cards in the competitive meta. As such, I couldn't ignore him and brought him up to the C tier. I think that he does need a little bit of a boost of some sort to try and differentiate him from the Executioner, but it does seem like people are using him and he's a good option in some specific decks. The last card new to the C tier is the Skeletons. Since they've been nerfed down to 3 skeletons, they've dropped in usage rate an incredible amount and even in win rate as well. They're going all the way from the S tier down to the C tier because they don't offer as much value as the other 1 elixir costing card, the Ice Spirit. Lastly, we have the F tier. These are cards that are poor for the current meta. They just don't offer very much value and they rarely do work. Sometimes you can build a deck specifically around making one of them work, but even those types of decks will be a little inconsistent and not be able to compete against all of the meta decks. Once again, these are the poor cards for competitive tournaments, not for the ladder. Some of these cards may actually do pretty well in the ladder, like the Royal Giant and Elite Barbarians, because you can overlevel them. New to the F tier is the Mortar. The Mortar is also suffering from a similar situation as the Expo, where it's so easily countered by the bridge spam deck and doesn't offer the value like it used to be able to do. Its usage rate is 1% and its win rate is incredibly low. We also have the Bats. The Bats are a brand new card. They got a nerf even before they were released. They went from 5 Bats per card down to 4 Bats. I would love to see the Bats be a little bit more usable, but they don't do very much damage and they do get cleared super easily by the Zap, which is a pretty common card in the meta right now. Now let's talk about my balance list, or these are suggested cards that I think should be either nerfed or buffed. These are not given by Supercell. This is not something that is absolutely going to happen or even suggested to happen. These are just my thoughts on how we can make the meta great again. Number 1 on the nerf list is the Night Witch. I know she's seen a decrease in usage and win rates, but I think that's just because the meta is adapting to her. However, I do think she offers a little too much value when it comes to her damage per second. I think if that were reduced just a little bit, it might make her a little bit more balanced out and make bridge spam's decks a little bit less powerful. Next is the Battle Ram. I was trying to decide between either the Battle Ram and the Bandit. I think that the Battle Ram and the Bandit, as they are right now, is just too strong. I think that if either one of them were nerfed a little bit, then it would probably balance out the meta a little bit more, but the Battle Ram specifically, I think is way too punishing for 4 elixir. I think if it took a little bit longer for it to actually charge up, then it would be a little bit less threatening and allow people to respond to it without getting punished so hard. First on the buff list is the Prince. I think that he could do with a little bit more of a damage on his side of things. I know that he's a little bit of a terrorizer in lower arenas, but I think for competitive gameplay, he just doesn't offer the 5 elixir value that he should. We also have the Dark Prince. Honestly, I think the Dark Prince does a pretty good job, but he just is all around outshined by so many other cards. I think that in order for him to be a splash tank like he's supposed to be, he needs to have a little bit more health after his shield is broken. Next we have the Mini Pekka. The Mini Pekka for 4 elixir, I think he just needs to do a little bit more damage. If he were able to do more damage, there would be a little bit more differentiation between him and the Night Witch, who also spawns bats. The Tesla Tower is also on the buff list. It does attack both air and ground targets, and as such you think it'd be really versatile, but it just doesn't offer very much health, and because of that, it makes it really easy for cards to actually clear it. I think that if either its health or its damage per second was increased, the Tesla Tower would help a lot in the current meta. The Bomber is another card that I would like to see buffed. He's a really defensive card and also really great at putting out pushes. He is stopped by Fireball, which I think is a good thing. I wouldn't want him to have health like a Mega Minion, but I think his health or his damage needs to be increased just a little bit. Lastly, we have the bats. I would love to see the bats move back up to 5 bats per the card, and that way, even though they're still going to be zappable, they're going to offer a little bit more damage per second and add them a little bit of a threat value, even though they're easily cleared. Thank you so much for watching. These are some collaborators that helped me really refine this tier list. Make sure you check out their information as well. There's links in the description below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you like what you saw. This is Kairos time ticking by. We will see you in the arena.